get on with it.
Yeah, we can't get Kevin's lower third working, but you know, we're gonna send medication. So lower third hasn't worked
I don't
properly.
know how I feel about that.
That's unbelievable. Anyway, all right. Sorry for starting late today, guys. I apologize, and I also apologize for my Radio Shack shirt, which is like a little bit old school here. So, but had an interesting phone call about a rumor right before we started. So
enlighten us.
I can't yet, but I can talk. But yes, it was interesting, and it was you know, these kind of calls, and it was funny because the person I'm talking to watches the show, and it was like 1:03, and I'm texting you guys, we'll be 5 minutes late, whatever. And he says, don't you do a show about now? I'm like, yeah, I do. I do.
Thanks for reminding me.
I do a show about now. And actually, everybody's waiting for us to go. But yep. But I haven't talked to you for a couple months, so I really wanted to speak with you. So I did. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll have some juicy rumors for you guys at some point here regarding this. But yeah, let's start right into it. Ready? January 13th, and happy birthday, Brianna, one of our loyal watchers out there.
Oh, by the way, you know who you also share a birthday with?
I know a couple people. Howard Stern.
Rush Limbaugh.
Oh!
Whoa! Hold on. Wait a second. Howard Stern and Rush Limbaugh are both born on the same day.
Same day.
Wow.
That just confirms my theory that I've had forever.
Two radio legends.
No, my theory has been that either Rush Limbaugh or Howard Stern could do the other's job tomorrow if they were asked to. Like, they could either just step in and do, like, Rush Limbaugh could be Howard Stern could do it. Because they just know what they're doing, and they're so honed into this thing that they do, that they could easily switch positions and take the other stance tomorrow.
Well, they've both been doing radio for 40 years, so I'll bet you're right. So.
Yeah, and it's just they feel how they feel about the issues, but they also know what side their butter's breaded on, so to speak. But I do believe that they could easily swap positions and speak just as passionately about the other side of things without any question.
In the case of Rush Limbaugh, his bread is buttered on both sides.
Yes. Okay, I guess that's the kind of thing I'll figure out later tonight. I got this box sent to me in the mail. Hey, viewer, this is really funny. So if you want to send gifts, you can. I'll give you an address to send gifts to. So this is a box about sports topics. It's really funny. It's nothing but sports topics. So you can pick like a random topic out of here, like for example, and I'll give you a sports topic. It says,
"Why the Leafs suck." No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
If you can make the same amount of money in every sport, which sport would you participate in? Like that kind of thing. So it's just random topics. So I figure at some point during a podcast,
badminton.
This tells me something when our viewer sends us his list of sports topics. And I just realized this is not exactly a compliment, but
if you want to send cash, I'll give you my address.
Which historical sporting event do you most wish you could have attended? And that's kind of cool. So anyway, I would have loved to have been at the Miracle on Ice game.
Super Bowl 3.
Super Bowl 3? All right. What do you think, Kev?
That's a great question. Wow. Probably the 36 Olympics. Jesse Owens.
Oh yeah. Wow. That's
mine would be the 1919 World Series, because just to see, there's very little film of that. To see how blatant the throwing of the series by the Black Sox was. There's only reporting on it, and I'd like to see with my own eyes what it looked like when, somebody booted the ground ball or dropped a fly ball.
I would have liked to see Muhammad Ali versus Frazier.
Yeah. Yeah. So once in a while, we can always go to the box and
I saw that, but not live.
Right. What's your favorite sports song? I've always been a fan of Penalty Box by Dave Schultz. I have to say that was a. I know that goes back a ways, but.
How about "We're Gonna Win That Cup" by Jim Schoenfeld?
I thought you were going to say
Good hockey sports songs over the years made by teams.
Jim Schoenfeld recorded a single in 1974, I believe, called "We're Gonna Win That Cup." It was released in Western New York. It was actually catchy. You know, I was 7 years old and
no 50 mission cup for you, Mike?
50 mission cap.
Sorry, 50 mission cap.
I'll go with You Gotta Have Heart. That was the album that the '69 Mets put out. That was the big song off the album.
Oh. Wow, that's a good one.
How about the Hockey Sock Rock? Wasn't that what it was called?
All right, I got the "You're Going to Win That Cup" by Jim Schoenfeld ready to play. Oh man, it's not.
Gee, don't play it. No.
I got the 404 file directory not found.
Let's get the show started. Come on, it's 22 after.
Yes, get it
All right,
all.
ready? Hello, Hockey World. How you doing? It is January 13th. It's Tuesday, and it's the year of our Lord 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
I'm Russ Cohen of Sportsology.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
Excellent done. Well done for having not knowing what order we were going to go in. And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com, coming to you live today from all sorts of places, but mostly from your computer, wherever you sit. Hopefully, this is the podcast where we come to you every Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock, to try to help you get through another day, and maybe just kill an hour of work. That's what we like to do. By the time this is done, it's 2 o'clock. The day's almost over. So think of it that way. We are gonna start today with finishing off the midseason awards we were doing yesterday, and I would like to get Russ's opinions on some of them too, because Russ definitely, I'm sure, has some often controversial opinions on these awards. But let's start with the Calder, because we didn't talk about the Calder yet. That was the last award we were going to do yesterday, and for me, this is not even a. I will say this though, before I say it's not a question and that Philip Forsberg has to win this award, I will say this: this is the best, I think, and this I'm going to go to Russ with right away. Is this the best group of rookies, like the best Calder candidates we've had in a long time?
It is. There's no question it is, but I don't think it's a slam dunk for Philip Forsberg. I'm not trying to be difficult. Aaron Ekblad has to be right up there too. It's not always about points, it's about transforming a team. It's about changing a whole team's defense. I mean, basically, Aaron Ekblad has improved what was the worst part about the Florida Panthers. So while Forsberg is the leader in points, I don't think Ekblad's leading his team in points anymore, but he was a little while ago. So I have to still use him.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. I mean, I just think this is a great group. I mean, we talked about the rookie goalie out in Winnipeg, too. You've just got a group of that are really turning things around. Kevin, who's your pick?
Well, this is really odd because, Russ certainly knows that I agree with him with regard to Ekblad's impact. I think he's the best 18-year-old defenseman since Ray Bourque. But saying that, how can you not give it to the best forward on the top point team in the National Hockey League? Forsberg's impact on the Predators has been dramatic. He leads his team in scoring. He's given them a very consistent, almost a point per game production on a team that had trouble scoring goals last season. He's been such a difference maker on that team, and he's fifth in the NHL in plus minus, and has at various points been the leader. So as much as I respect Ekblad, if you pick today, it's clearly Forsberg by landslide. Now, the only caveat I have is, we're still halfway through, and Ekblad could pick it up, and I don't disagree that he's made a major difference on the Florida Panthers. I just think what Forsberg has done just sort of outstrips. He's just been a more consistent. Ekblad was slow out of the gate, and it took him 8 to 10 games. So for 25% of the season, and where Forsberg has been consistent from start to where we are now.
Yeah, 8 to 10 games though. That's something for a rookie.
Well, it is, but we're splitting hairs here. These guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I say these are two of the best. Like both of these guys, could have won it in any year in the last. McKinnon was amazing last year, obviously, but before that, we had some rookies that were okay, but not at this level in my mind.
And Ekblad's a +12. Who on the Florida Panthers was ever a +12 in the last few years?
Yeah. No, and as I said, I feel odd, going against Ekblad because I'm one of his biggest boosters. But fair is fair, and Forsberg has just been so consistent.
We have like a Nashville Predators runaway with these awards, Kevin. Talking about this yesterday. Laviolette is perhaps an Adams. We have Rene for Vezina and possibly the Hart Trophy. You've got the defense, the Norris Trophy candidate there too, and now you've got Forsberg too. This could be a crazy. I mean, it's been a long time since one team has dominated possibly these awards at the mid-season point like this. I mean, this is like
it's odd though. What's interesting about Shea Weber is, and this is the analytics phase of the NHL is really not that old. I mean, it's really about in terms of being visible and mainstream people knowing about it. It's really, I think, about a year old. And this is the first time where I wonder if it's going to have an impact on the Norris Trophy race because, I've been reading, and I'm sure you have too, discussions about whether analytics are showing that Shea Weber isn't as effective as most of us think he is. Those of us who just use the eyeball test or who like analytics but don't place them in great importance in terms of determining trophy winners. And the point that a lot of the analytics guys making is that Nashville seems to score at a higher rate when he's not on the ice, Shea Weber. And there's a big discussion about and it was a similar discussion like when Ryan Suter got away from Shea Weber, and together they were quite the dynamic duo, and separate analytics show that they may not be quite as good as we think they are. So it's going to be interesting to see. I personally have Weber and Giordano as 1-2 in the Norris, but again, we're halfway through.
Yeah.
It could be Ekblad at the end of the season. It could be neither Giordano or Weber in the Norris. I mean, Drew Doughty has been amazing as well for the Norris, particularly with runoff out.
Well, I'm using the same criteria with the Calder that I used for the Jack Adams, with Gerard, Gary Galley, Gallant.
There you go.
That if Florida makes the playoffs, that I think Ekblad's going to win the Calder. I think Forsberg's having a great year, and Gaudreau is definitely going to be one of the top 3 selections. But if Ekblad scores at the rate he's scoring right now and is playing the defense, maintains the defensive level that he's maintaining right now, and doing that as an 18-year-old as opposed to Gaudreau, who I believe is 20, and Forsberg that's 21. And I know we've talked about this before, Kevin, where you said that maybe that the age shouldn't be a part of the criteria, but I think it still is. And the fact that to me, defense is the toughest position for a young player to play well, and he comes in in his draft year and plays the way he has played, to me that gives Ekblad a notch above the other 2 guys who have played in either junior or the AHL or in Europe. So I would go with Ekblad, but as you said, it's halfway through the season.
Yeah. What do you think?
So tie goes to the defenseman no matter what? Is that how you view it?
Yeah, and tie goes to the non-goaltender in the Hart.
I will try to make sure we get that put in the NHL rules so we all understand that.
I agree with Kevin too on all the awards except the Hart. I might have somebody who's a little different. I would go Carey Price because even though Pekka Rinne I think is the Vezina, I don't think Montreal would be anywhere near where they are without Carey Price this year, and I don't hear enough people talking about him.
Good argument. It is a good argument. I like Rene, but I respect that argument. That's a good argument.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And we talked yesterday a little bit about I was torn between Price and Rene for the Vezina too, for the same kind of reason. But I didn't even think of Price for the Hart as much as I don't know. I've been thinking about Rene for the Hart. But you're right about that. I mean, there's no question. I mean, that team, they are where they are because of Price right now. I would totally. Josh, who's your pick for the Calder?
You know what? I still like Johnny Hockey. I also like the kid in Winnipeg if he can keep it going, the goaltender, Hutchinson.
Hutchinson, yeah.
Yeah, I really like Hutchinson's game. I mean, I know Forsberg's probably going to win it. He's going to run away with it. But, I mean, my pick would be Goudreau or Hutchinson.
Hey, but Rob Zepp's 2-0. Hutchinson's not undefeated.
That's not
Yeah,
fair.
that's true.
He doesn't reach the age required.
I know.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I would say this about Hutchinson, like, if he's going to hold at a save percentage of .925 or above, and because he's going to get more games, he's played very, very well, and as time goes on, his numbers are going to look pretty good. Like that's certainly if Winnipeg's going to make the playoffs and he ends up, stealing the net, full time, like he could be there as well. I see that.
Yeah, he's right there. He's right there for me. Well, let's talk a little bit about speaking of unorthodox situations and goalies who could have been MVPs at one point or another in their lives, but weren't, or were they? Maybe they were. I forget. Dominik Hasek today. Dominik Hasek never won an MVP.
Only goalie to win 2 MVPs.
There you go. So, I mean, yeah, and there was no question about that when he won those MVPs too. He was that important to those teams. I was trying to remember whether or not he actually won them or not. But yeah, he won 2 MVPs. His number is being retired tonight in Buffalo. This is I'm a huge Dominik Hasek fan because I just love the fact that we had a goalie who was different than other goalies. Like, I'm not a big fan of the fact that goalies are so cookie cutter these days. And Tim Thomas was different, but he's gone. Hasek's different. He's gone. Now I mean the closest thing we have, I guess, is I think Rennie's a little bit different than other goalies, but he's similar. Jonathan Quick is probably the most unique goalie we have out there right now. But Hasek definitely was the most unique and the most dominant. And Kevin, in your book, which is entitled, and right here, it's called Without Fear, the Greatest Goalies of All Time by Kevin Allen and Bob Duff. You have Hasek as number 6 all time.
Well, for sure. I mean, his impact, it was just incredible. His 9 years in Buffalo has to be one of the greatest runs of goaltending we've ever seen, if not the greatest run of goaltending. And I would argue it was at least the most entertaining run of goaltending we've ever seen. But 6 consecutive seasons of leading the NHL in save percentage. 5 of those seasons were .930 and above at a time when most everyone was around .900, .904, .905. The team played so much differently knowing that Hasek was back there, and did so in such an entertaining fashion as well. Like, and I think it always felt like it was a night at the Improv when he was playing. He was certainly unorthodox in his style. He was very Gumby-like in his elasticity. He was quick. You never quite knew what you were going to do. He had that move, which was one of my favorites, where he would, kind of plop on his back, and then, start his arm backwards as if he was starting the backstroke. The Snow Angel move he perfected.
You have this great picture here, Kevin, in your book that just epitomizes it too. We'll see how well this shows up, but this is his picture here. This is let me see if I can get this in the right spot here.
Yeah.
But there, this is a typical Dominik Hasek save. Like his sticks out of his waffle. He's laying on his belly and he's leaning forward. Trying to poke at the puck with his waffle, or grab it with his waffle hand like he would do.
Well, it always seemed like he really had great disdain for his stick because he never kept it. He just always kind of threw it aside. But he was just a remarkable athlete, and back-to-back MVPs, and also, and it never gets mentioned, but he also won back-to-back Pearsons. It's now the Lindsay, but the players thought he was the MVP as well. And when he got those 13 shutouts, that was the highest number of shutouts in 27 years when that happened. Like, I think Esposito had like 15. And then he came along with 13, and that had been 27 years before. And he was the first one under 2 goals against for a season in 20 years since probably Perrant. It was probably Perrant that did it. as I recall. But he was a remarkable guy. The one thing I would say, too, that I think a lot of people misread about Hasek is he had the run-in with the late, great Jim Kelly, who was a friend of mine, highly respected hockey writer in Buffalo, a quality writer and a quality man. And Hasek and he did not see eye to eye. And they had a confrontation. It was a physical confrontation, not one that escalated out of control, but it certainly was. There was some jostling that went on. And because of that, I thought Hasek sort of got a reputation as perhaps being a guy that was difficult to get along with. But nothing could be farther from the truth. Like, he was very well liked by the media because he was a very entertaining figure. You go and you talk to him, it's almost part of his shtick was if he didn't play well, he wanted to confess. So he wanted to talk to the media. He would wait for you in a stall, and he would be eager to start the conversation. If he didn't play well, he wanted to explain to you what he had done and what he planned to do about it. He was just that kind of guy. And the stories when he was in with Detroit are legendary. He was so upset one night with how poorly he had played, he refused to go home. He stayed all night. He thought about his level of goaltending and worked it all out. When the players came back from practice the next morning, they found him sacked out, in the trainer's room, covered up with towels and things. And he got up, stretched, went out and practiced, and all was good. He was just a very entertaining, intriguing character, and just an unbelievable goaltender. And in my opinion, as I said, those 9 years in Buffalo, maybe the greatest run of goaltending we had seen in terms of combining with excellence of performance with entertainment value.
He was a highlight. He really was. I mean, and he really did create his own style. Like, nobody would ever try and play like Dominik Hasek. I don't think anybody could. And I think that was what was special about him. And I found him to be sort of humble. Anytime you would try and talk to him about records or something he broke, or he just loved the game. This guy would just do anything to play hockey, and I always appreciated him. And I don't think anybody ever made opposing players shake their heads more. I mean, so many guys would just shake their heads with great scoring opportunities, a complete wide open net, and they couldn't score.
What was funny about? I mean, it's ironic how Hasek's reign in Buffalo for that 9 years occurred. I mean, it happened basically by accident. I mean, Grant Fuhr got hurt in the '93 playoffs, and Hasek played for the Sabres. I mean, they got him in a three-way trade between Chicago and Winnipeg, involving Stefan Beauregard and Christian Ruutu. And he was back up to Grant Fuhr in '92-'93, took advantage of the fact that Fuhr got hurt in the playoffs. Fuhr was hurt the following year, and he took over as the number one. And then once he got in there, it was impossible for Fuhr to get the job back. I mean, yes, he was unorthodox. I heard him interviewed one time saying that the reason he dropped his stick so much is because it was more effective at picking up the puck with his blocker hand than actually with his glove. He was never really great with his glove. I mean, he was just so. As somebody just described, Gumby-like in his flexibility, that he would spread out all over the ice, and he also, he would cut down the angle on a close-in opportunity by leaning forward, and not coming out at the edge of the crease like a butterfly goaltender would, but he would just. It was very strange. Nobody ever. I don't think we'll ever copy his style, but the one thing that I give him credit for, even though I'm not an aficionado and a fan of the Sabres, is the fact that he got that Buffalo team that didn't deserve to get past the first round of the playoffs a couple times, got them to the conference final once in Lindy Ruff's first year, I think it was '97. And then got him to the finals in '99, and that was a team where Mike Pekka was the leading goal scorer. So getting that team as far as he did on his back was a remarkable thing.
Oh, yeah.
I want to add just a couple more things too that I remembered about him, and I'm just pulling this number clearly out of the clouds, but I would argue that his save percentage in practice might have been .990. Like, I never saw anybody who just hated letting his teammates score on him. And a lot of the guys that I've talked to through the years said he made the shooters on his team better because he demanded that at least 2 or 3 of them stay and shoot after practice, kind of because he wanted more shots. And the other thing I'd bring up, and this was a long discussion I had with him and his goaltending coach in Detroit, Jim Bedard, and also Ken Holland, who was the GM in Detroit, who was an ex-NHL goalie. He didn't play very long, but played a long time in the minors. And from them I learned that actually, as crazy and as freelance as Hasek's style actually looked, it was all pretty calculated. Like, the moves that he made were choreographed in his mind and was based on his calculation that at that point in the process, if we can steal that from the NFL, that right. At that point in the process of that play, that the move he made gave him, in his estimation, the best opportunity to make a save. When he would throw his arm back or lift his leg up or dive out and do the things he did, he had sort of in his mind determined as, this is my best shot. Right. And it was all based on odds. And when he would get in trouble, by his own admission, is when he really could get in a shooter's head. And when he would get in trouble is when he would anticipate what a shooter should do in a circumstance and would cheat to that. Like, in his mind, he would calculate that, on a 2-on-1, based on who it was, this guy is going to shoot, he's the shooter, and then he wouldn't shoot, and then he would give up a soft goal. Or the guy should pass, and he shot, and Ken Holland pointed out that there'd be some incredibly soft goals, and he'd ask Hasek about it later, and he'd go, the guy should never have shot in the puck. He was at a bad angle. He had a much better pass in front of him, and all of that played in his thinking. And the final thing I would say, just because it's such a good story, I had done a story about the Stanley Cup. I wrote an entire book on it, and one of my favorite stories, the only guy who almost lost possession of the cup, almost had the cup taken away from him, was indeed my good friend Dominik Hasek. And his great crime against humanity was he had been warned more than once that when he took the cup back to the Czech Republic and he had a large swimming pool, that the cup could not go into the pool. As we all know, the cup has been in the pool before, and it has not been a pleasant experience for the cup. It's formed a suction on the bottom of some pools, and it's been ripped apart trying to get it off. It's been tainted by the chlorine. It's not a good experience. So the cup keepers have tried to keep it out of the chlorine-ridden pools, and they said to Dominik, "No, we got it. We can't get it in the pool." And he defied those rules, and the cup ended up in the pool, and the cup keeper said, you and I have talked about this. It's getting out of hand again. And I guess it went in a second time. And they took the cup, and they were taking away when Yuri Slager, the famed defenseman who spoke both Russian and Czech, came and said, look, if you just trust me, I will give you my personal guarantee that this Stanley Cup will not go back in the pool. Because we got 30,000 people coming to the square in town here, and we need this cup. So trust me, I will protect the cup with my life. And the cup keeper agreed with that. And to his word, Slager made sure that cup didn't go anywhere near the pool. And he kept an eye on it all night, and they were able to go to the square, and Hasek was able to lift it, and everybody was satisfied. But that's the Hasek, Cup story, and one of my favorite Cup memories.
That's an excellent story.
I got a good funny story with Dominik Hasek. I don't know if you guys have heard it before or not, but Elliot Friedman has told me the story a while ago, and I know he wrote something about it recently. And when Hasek was in Ottawa, the Senators were working on the shootouts, and in games, no one could score on the rebound. Well, Brian McGrattan did it a couple of times, and Hasek got mad. He told him not to do it again. And when McGrattan did, legend goes that Hasek did not let him score in practice for the rest of the season.
That's about right.
Yep.
That makes that fits the bill perfectly. I mean, I do remember you would remember. It's funny you say I remember one time talking to the Flyers about when they were playing the Sabres back in the playoffs back then. Their motto was to take unorthodox shots on him. That was their theory. Their theory was that if you took weird shots from at weird times, that was your best chance, and they wouldn't do the normal play. And if you did the normal play, you would probably be beaten by it.
Yeah, the most unorthodox shot was the one that didn't go in the net, but that did count.
Yes, I was there for that one too. And, that was the most mad I've ever seen Hasek, and he was rightfully so. You all remember this, right, Russ?
What do you remember?
You remember the Leclerc shot, Russ?
I don't. I know. Not off the top of my head, I don't.
This was a playoff that John Leclerc came down the wing and fired a shot that went through the side of the net. Counted as a
2000.
Okay, I do remember now.
Yep, counted as a goal against Hasek in the playoffs. Really kind of turned the series.
That's right.
And at that point, I believe the video review was up in each individual press box and not in Toronto. Right. And Darcy Regier apparently charged trying to get into the room because he was so adamant that the puck had not gone in the net, and they had already determined it hadn't gone in, dropped the puck, and only after did who I think it was ESPN and Hockey Night in Canada show the review of the video, and it showed clearly that the net had bulged from the outside and that the puck had never gone in, and there was a hole in the mesh, so it was bizarre.
Yeah, that was one of those moments though. He went nuts. He really went nuts. And you would think that, and that was another theory back then, that you would try to get in Hasek's head by rattling him, that you could make him a little bit nuts. You could make him a little bit crazy, but I don't think it ever took away from his game, to be honest. I don't think making him crazy mattered, Kevin.
I think it fueled him. I think he played with great passion, and when his intensity would boil over, I think he just he got better. He was just one of those guys. Waugh was like that too. The more torqued Patrick would get, the better he played. And he somehow would transfer that to poise. But he was probably one of the greatest competitors I ever saw, was Waugh.
Yeah, for sure. No, you've seen this. We've seen this with lots of good players. That was the whole thing with. I think that's true with Claude Giroux. He's a better player when he's angry, and Eric Lindros was, the whole thing on him was never to touch him. Throughout the game, if you touched Lindros, you were going to awaken the monster, which you didn't want to awaken up. Josh, what do you have for us?
Well, I know we talked about Selanne yesterday, and he also had his retirement yesterday. But something that I was thinking about last night as I was seeing his number 8 being lifted to the rafters, Paul Kariya did not show up for this. He actually planned a ski vacation, and Kariya lives down the street from Selanne, and they've been best pals for years. Now, Kariya taped a testimonial on the video screen, and obviously in Anaheim it got really loud. Well, word is that Kariya is very bitter still about hockey. He actually has been asked to do some community work for the Ducks, and his one provision was it stayed private, no media. He didn't want to do any media of any sort. But he still does some stuff as well. When they had the huge mumps outbreak, he was going to the children's hospitals, filling in for players. But Kariya is disappointed. Was disappointed in hockey when he retired, angry for the punishment for some of the headshots that he received that he felt were too light. But hopefully one day he will be a visible ambassador for the game. But right now he's still very bitter, and that's sad to see, because Paul Kariya was a big part of the Anaheim Ducks organization.
Yeah, such a great player for so many years. Yeah, I did not know that. That's and he did take his share of cheap shots, Paul Kariya. Yeah. He got, and we all remember he played with some concussions too, and he probably wouldn't be allowed to play in this day and age in hockey, but he played with them back then.
And he's always been a private person too. He was not a guy that liked the spotlight, to be sure. So when you couple that with his unhappiness by the way things ended, I could see where he would not want to be in the spectacle that Selanne's retirement ceremony was.
Yeah, I could see that too. All right, now the rest. This is for you. Okay. Islanders and Rangers. Who's better?
Who's better? Right this moment, I would say the Rangers are better because Lundqvist is at least playing like the Lundqvist we remember, not the Lundqvist that played for the first month and a half. So I have to give the edge to the Rangers right now. I'll tell you, ticket prices are at an all-time high for at least the last decade. They're about $285 a seat for this game.
Really?
That's how much it's being anticipated. I heard this morning there were only 36 tickets available, even on StubHub. Like, nobody's giving them up anymore. Actually, not 36, 306. So that's it. I mean, this is a big deal, and I do think the Rangers get a little bit of the edge. I do remember going into Islander-Ranger playoff games on the island, and I think it's going to be a very similar situation that it was to the mid-'80s. I think we're finally going to see that, and it's kind of nice. And so we'll see. This should be a big game. Is this an NHL Network game?
I don't know. Is it? Night?
I can find out.
Find out. Although you would think they would have saved it for rivalry night, but hey, what do you know?
Yeah. I mean,
no, it's on MSG. It's just on MSG.
Which is good for everybody else because you'll all be able to watch it on the Center Ice package. or your game center, right? So yeah. What I got to thinking about when I saw this is the time is right now for next year's Winter Classic to be Islanders Rangers. We've been waiting for this for a long time. We've been waiting for the Islanders to get good enough to do it. But now I really feel like this is the time to do it. And I know that the rumors are what they are. It's going to be in Boston or what have you. But we need an Islanders Rangers Winter Classic. I think.
I'd love it. I say do it in Central Park.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Do it in Central Park would be phenomenal, especially because you have the Brooklyn Islanders coming up and all that stuff. I just think that this would be, and they've wanted to do this since they came up with the idea. Like I remember talking to people when they were just starting the Winter Classic, and they all said, "Well, eventually we're going to do the Rangers Islanders. We're going to do, but we got to wait because the Rangers were off." But Kev, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I agree with Russ. It's the Rangers. It's simply because the Islanders team is still unproven. The Rangers got to the Stanley Cup final last season. We know what Lundqvist is all about. We know what their defense is all about. They're playing well. They've been among the hottest teams, and the Islanders are a new arrival. They got to show us. I'm bullish on the Islanders. I predicted they would be where they are because I expected they were going to be a high-scoring team, and then once they got Wojciech and Halak has made a difference as well. But you think you have to give the nod to the team that's most proven, and the Rangers have been there, done it. Right now, I would give them. And with regard to the Winter Classic, you're right on the money. I think it would be terrific. I like the Central Park concept in theory, but I think you got to get to the bigger stadiums for now. And when we get toward we've been at it a while, and we're just looking for the kind of just cool places to put it. I would put it there, but right now I would put that game in a bigger stadium. And,
go ahead, Russ.
You could add a lot of seats to Wallman Rink. You're not like locked into the seats. Like you basically can keep adding them around with portable seats and portable stanchions. I think you'd be able to add quite a bit. There's a lot of room there.
How big do you think you'd get would be the big question.
Boy, it wouldn't be like 100,000 or anything, but I think you could probably get 20,000. I would think.
Okay, well, that's not bad.
And that's not bad, but those two teams played at Yankee Stadium, and I don't know what the capacity was at that point. I think it was probably 50 or 60,000. Maybe they. If the NHL is locked into Boston next year for the Winter Classic, then maybe they would do, an Islanders Rangers at say Citi Field for one of the other outdoor games, and that would be a good idea. I just think it's a great rivalry. It's been sort of dormant for years because the Islanders have been a doormat.
It's still been great for the years, though. That's the thing. It's still been really good. Like I've seen some during these years when the Islanders have been terrible, and these games are still phenomenal.
Well, I'm not saying it's been completely dead. I mean, even when Toronto is one of the worst teams in the league, the Habs and the Leafs is a rivalry. So right. I'm thinking, the Islanders and the Rangers is still a rivalry, but it helps when both teams are very competitive and good. And this year, the Islanders I think are a playoff team. And as Kevin said, there's a lot, they've improved with Boychuk and Letty and Halak. The Rangers are, I think, the better team right now because they're a more complete team. And, if you look at them after all the injuries they had early in the season, when they got Steppen back, when they got Boyle back, they're a well-oiled machine now. And, it's a positive commentary on that organization that they had so much turnover last year, losing Boyle and Strawman and all those players, and that they've brought in some other people. They've added some young guys like Hayes, and they just really aren't skipping a beat. So I'm looking forward to watching that game tonight.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing about the Rangers to me is that they got to the Stanley Cup final before they really were ready to get to the Stanley Cup final. I felt like they were there.
Things broke right for them.
They broke right for them, yeah. But as you watched them, you were sitting there saying, this team, I remember talking to you about this, Russ, while we watched the game, actually, in Madison Square Garden. This team's going to be really good. And yet there's this, they're in the Stanley Cup final. You're like, well, I guess they're good now, right? But they are actually going to be really good. See it.
The problem with the Rangers is I think they're going to look completely different next season. Stahl probably won't be there. Zuccarello probably won't be there. There could be. I could see 4 or 5 people that will be gone next season. So.
Well, Stahl might not be there at the trading deadline. I mean, they might just deal him.
See, I can't see that. Well, I shouldn't say that. It would depend on what they can get back. But when you're a team playing as well as they are, and you're in New York, you got to go for it. In my mind.
I know, but once upon a time, I'll switch sports for just a second. The Mets let Darryl Strawberry walk, and they didn't get anything in return, and then he eventually signed with the Dodgers. They never heard the end of it. If the Rangers did this with Stahl and they didn't win the Cup and they let him walk, I think the same thing would happen to them.
I mean, they were saved from massive criticism for the Callahan deal because St. Louis was such an integral part of them having a great playoff run. The question is, if you do move Stahl, I mean, the type of team is going to be interested in Stahl is going to be a team that's competing for the Stanley Cup. So you're going to be trading him to another contender, whether it be in the East or the West. I mean, do the Rangers really want to give one of the better defensemen, two-way defensemen in the NHL, to a team that could be one of their competitors for the ultimate prize?
Well, they could control who they trade him to as well, right? And the other thing about that,
and when you let a guy go, it's really for a player to be named later. Cap space is an asset. And I'm tired of actually making that case because I never win with fans. They just don't buy that argument.
But I agree with you. I've always agreed with that.
It's an asset. You're going to get something to plug in for that $6 million you were going to pay Stahl.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll likely be a free agent or two. So
Mark Stahl for Eric Stahl.
So
no, I really
Eric Stahl's not waiting. There's no trade.
Was that Russ?
They can't afford that one.
They can't afford that one. And doesn't everybody think that Mark Stahl's going to end up in Carolina anyway? I mean, that's really where
it sure makes sense.
It seems like where it's all heading. So maybe you make a deal with the Hurricanes now. Like that's the team that I would make a trade with. If you can get something half decent from the Hurricanes now.
Justin Falk?
No, it's not going to happen.
Falk, but the Hurricanes won't give him up.
Yeah, they tried that actually earlier this year.
Yeah, why would they do that?
Right, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do Falk. But they're
out there, though, has been Sekera possibly being traded. Apparently, Carolina's been dangling him to other teams.
There's one problem with that trade. His title is a defenseman, and Andres Sekera does not play defense.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's not a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
But what if the Rangers traded with Carolina and they got like Ryan Murphy and Skinner and they traded Stahl and maybe even Zuccarello? I mean, that would solve their cap problem. They'd be able to re-sign Stepan, and they would have enough players to still compete
this year.
Yeah, but Carolina, I'm not sure why they would want to do that. If they believe they're going to be able to sign Stahl in the off season, I don't see them giving up a young player like that.
And the last thing that they're going to want to do right now in the second half of the season is bring in players to get them to improve their record when they're in that Eichel, McDavid, Hanifin range. They're if they can sign Mark Stahl and give up nothing for him in July, then they'll just do that.
But let's not forget that they did give up something for Jordan Stahl, and that was another situation where they probably could have waited that out. That was.
Yeah, here's a scenario too that this doesn't get talked about, but it's one that's on my radar, and I've passed along and talked about with GMs and stuff. If you're the number 3 or 4 spot in this draft, and say you're in the Hanifin range, say you're 3, but you want Eichel, and you're a Carolina team, and that's when you can start moving some people around and trying to go from 3 or 2, because the team of 2, depending on who it is, like what if it's Edmonton? Do they want an American Eichel, another forward, or do they want a young star like Hanifin? So you might be able to move up and get Eichel, which I think would be much more valuable to Carolina than the defenseman. So we could still see that. I don't think it's an absolute certainty that the top 2 teams in the draft will take both McDavid and Eichel.
And that there are some draft lists that came out after the World Junior that have Hanifin slipping to 4 and Krause moving up to 3, which so who knows what's going to happen? We're how many months away from the draft?
Well, we have Russ. He'll tell us exactly what's going to happen.
But remember, the percentage has changed too. The NHL has changed the draft lottery, so it's not a total gimme that, let's say, the worst record gets that first pick. Now, it's pretty much a gimme they'll be in the top 3, but it's only 20-something%, or I think 22%, something like that, for the first pick. So I think we still could see a surprise for the first pick. And then, once you get past 3 or 4, you're getting in that Hanifin and Zacha area, and then we'll see. Then but there's still a lot of prizes, even going through the 10 in this first round.
Yeah, so this is a big. This is the big. That makes sense. And I think Edmonton definitely needs a defenseman somehow, unless they're going to make a move. What do you have, Josh, as far as news for us today?
A lot of stuff, guys. Ken Holland saying a couple hours ago that an ultrasound confirming Jimmy Howard has a slight groin tear. He'll be out 2 to 4 weeks. Obviously, no All-Star game for him, so they'll need to replace him there. Other injury news in Tampa, both Tyler Johnson and Victor Hedman left last night's game with lower body injuries. They are out tonight, but John Cooper doesn't consider them long-term. He believes both will play before the All-Star break. In Philadelphia, another big blow to the defense. Once again, Braden Coburn out 4 weeks, this time with a lower body injury, not too far away in Pittsburgh. Reports are that Ole Mata will be out for the remaining of the year. Poor kid, just not catching any breaks this year with all the injuries and obviously the cancer diagnosis he had before. Just really feel for the kid.
Hold up on that one for a second, Josh. What I wonder now is, does this, there had been some talk about the Penguins possibly shipping Paul Martin since he was a pending UFA. But if Mata's out for the year, I know that they have a lot of good young defensemen, but I would be skeptical if the Penguins would give up on a veteran like Martin with Mata out for the season.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree with that. Even with Pouliot doing well, I still agree with that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
In Boston, Simone Gagne, it was announced last night, will not return to the Boston Bruins after the passing of his father. Definitely, a tough thing to go through. We've talked about father's passing with what happened with Zach Parise a couple weeks ago, or not even a couple weeks ago. I think it was last week. Yeah. Other news, Bob McKenzie noting on TSN 1050, they've got an owner, and this is in reference to Mike Babcock, they've got an owner who's not going to worry about putting a 5 in front of anybody's salary. That's the Philadelphia Flyers. There's speculation now that Babcock could very well end up in Philadelphia, and a lot of people think because the reason for that is Ed Snyder. And Ed Snyder is willing to pay as much money possible to get Babcock behind the bench. So not only, add Philadelphia now to the list. I mean, we've heard Toronto. Now speculation in Philly. What do you think of that, Ak? You think there's anything to that at all? Bob talking about that on TSN?
Russ's opinion on that. Russ, what are your thoughts?
I don't think that's happening. I I'm sure Ed Snyder wants him. I'm sure half the teams in the league want him. I think at the end of the day, it's not like Detroit doesn't have any money. And I just think somebody asked me the other day, and Kevin would have a better idea than me, but if someone asked me why is Babcock sort of waiting, and I said, well, maybe he's just waiting to see how the team is going to flesh out a little bit and what the future looks like before he signs. Maybe they're going to wait and see what they do at the deadline and how much of a cup contender they are. I think that's all he's really waiting on. I'd be really surprised if he leaves.
Yeah, me too. And as far as Philadelphia goes, people are going to always bring up Philadelphia when it comes to money situations like this, right? Because they can afford it, Comcast can afford it. They can definitely afford it, but it's hard to downplay exactly how embarrassing the Laviolette thing was to Philadelphia and to Ed Snyder. Because going to that press conference when they hired Berube was one of the weirder press conferences I think that we've ever seen. It was one of these situations where Ed said, "Listen, we're not going to do this anymore." He basically said, "We're not going to do these crazy coaching moves anymore. We're going to settle in, and we're going and they've really given Hextall a lot more room to do what he wants to than I think any GM they've given to in the past. I don't think that and I think Babcock would be a complete reversal of that. Not saying it's impossible because anything's possible in Philadelphia. We've learned that, but I just think that I don't see it. I don't see it.
And it's not only McKenzie, apparently. I'm seeing here, Drager's also floated that out there as well, saying that Ed Snyder, when he sets his sights on someone, he won't give up. So
yeah,
that's a bad experience though recently. And
reference Ilya Brizgalov.
Right. I mean, there's some things that have happened recently where Ed's starting to think that I'm 80 years old. I might let somebody else do this. I guess the impression I get. I don't know.
Last bit I want to point out. Game to watch tonight. My game of the night. Jason Spezza's first game against his former team, the Ottawa Senators.
It's going to be fun to watch, but it doesn't beat the Islanders and Rangers to me.
Yeah, or the Long.
But definitely watch and haven't. I mean, Jason Spezza was such a polarizing figure in Ottawa for so many years. That's the fun thing about it. There are definitely people in Ottawa who always loved Spezza, people who always hated Spezza. I always thought Spezza got a kind of a raw deal in Ottawa from a lot of the fans. A better player than people gave him credit for.
I have one thing there too, if that's possible.
Go ahead, yeah, Russ.
I want to give an impassioned plea. I know everybody in the world is sort of waiting for the NHL to name Henrik Lundqvist now that Howard's out. But Lundqvist really doesn't want to do it. He wants to be with his family. He wants the time off. I think Corey Schneider really deserves it more than Henrik Lundqvist. And I think because the Devils are sort of like a boring team that people are forgetting the great year that Corey Schneider's having. And I would want to see Corey Schneider in there. I think he's the one who's really worthy.
What if they go the direction of a Marty Brodeur?
No.
Like a Gordie, like a Gordie Howe selection.
And make him an extra selection and bring another goalie in, but no.
Okay. It was a thought.
All right. Well, I think I'll let Kevin sit in silence on this one.
Yeah.
But that's all the time we have for. That's all the time we have for today on the Hockey Buzzcast. We appreciate Russ as always. Russ, your book is still out there, and tell people a little bit about it.
100 things Ranger fans should do before they die. Still selling well. Actually have a signing Sunday in Manhattan. Go look on my page because I forget the name of the place. But Ron Duguay will be there from 12:30 to 1:30, so that should be a lot of fun. And Ron Duguay has the same hair I used to have, except he still has it.
He still looks fantastic for his age. He still looks exactly the same. It's very funny.
Still using the Vidal Sassoon.
Still getting whistled when he played at the Winter Classic in Philly, which was a blast. Awesome. Yeah, definitely check that book out for sure. We'll talk to you guys soon. Be back tomorrow. Take care.
See ya.